Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're jumping into a topic that is, no joke, mission critical for anyone running Drupal at scale. We're talking about your hosting and infrastructure strategy for 2026 and really beyond. The whole game is changing, and the choices we make right now, they're going to define our agility, our budget, and our freedom for years to come. All right, let's get into it. So let's just start with the biggest question you should be asking yourself. Is your hosting platform a real partner, one that's actually helping you succeed? Or has it kind of become a prison, locking you into a system that just gets more expensive and less flexible the bigger you get? It's a tough question for sure, but you got to ask it. And the pressure to get this right is really mounting. Why? Well, because the web itself is fundamentally shifting under our feet. Right now, over 21% of Google searches feature those AI overviews. That means our infrastructure has to be way more agile, way more responsive than ever before. We're not just serving up web pages anymore, we're feeding this massive, hungry, AI-driven ecosystem, and that demands a whole new level of flexibility. And all that pressure leads us straight to the main villain of our story today, what we call the negotiation trap. You know that feeling, right? That sinking feeling when the platform works okay, but your bill just keeps climbing and climbing. All your data, your workflows, your team, they're so tangled up in the system that the idea of switching just feels impossibly expensive and complex. And that's it. You're trapped. So how did so many of us end up in this spot? Well, it really started with the rise of the Opinionated Platform as a Service model, or PaaS. You know, these are the big established solutions that came along and promised to make everything easier. And you know what? For a while, they really did. The two heavyweights in this space are, of course, Pantheon and Acquia, and they're laser-focused on very different customers. Pantheon is pretty much the go-to for agile teams that need to move fast. They value simplicity and pure speed in their dev workflow. Acquia, on the other hand, is built from the ground up for huge, regulated enterprises. We're talking government, healthcare, finance, that kind of world. And each of them has some serious strengths. Pantheon gives you this fantastic web ops standard. Their multi-dev feature, which lets you spin up parallel dev environments, it's an absolute game changer for a lot of teams. Acquia's power lies in its heavyweight governance. I mean, if you're an organization trying to manage thousands of websites, its Site Factory gives you this centralized control and compliance that is just unmatched. But, and this is a huge but, here is the critical constraint for 2026 that both of these platforms share. This is the key takeaway. You don't own the underlying infrastructure. It's owned by the vendor. It's like you're building your dream house on rented land. And that, fundamentally, limits your control, your sovereignty over your own data, and your ability to actually manage your costs. Now, when teams see the high costs and the constraints of the big platforms, some of them swing the pendulum way over to the other side. They end up falling into what you could call the simple trap, thinking, hey, we can just manage all this ourselves on a cheap server. And this whole DIY approach, it almost always leads to the creation of a Snowflake server. It's a funny name for a really dangerous problem. A server that's been configured manually, it's totally unique, and it's incredibly fragile. It becomes the single point of failure, it's never documented, and it's usually managed by that one person on the team, you know the one. It is just an accident waiting to happen. And believe me, this risk is not just theoretical. As our source material puts it perfectly with a Snowflake server, a single availability zone outage results in complete downtime. In today's world where everything has to be always on, that is just not an acceptable business risk. This isn't a strategy, it's a gamble, plain and simple. Okay, so if the big platforms can lead to locking, and the simple DIY approach is way too risky, what's left? Where do we go? Well, this brings us to a new, modern model that actually solves this problem. It's called Hybrid Orchestration, and it's a genuine breakthrough in how we think about our hosting infrastructure. This model gets right to the heart of the financial pain. I mean, what if you could get all the awesome automation and the convenience of a high-end platform, but you could completely eliminate that expensive markup they charge you, right on top of the raw infrastructure costs? This chart makes the difference so clear. On the left, that's your typical managed host. You're paying for the raw cloud costs, plus a pretty hefty 30 to 50% markup just for their platform layer. Now look at the right. With hybrid orchestration, that entire markup is just gone. You only pay the raw cost. That's it. And the impact of just removing that markup layer, it's staggering. We're seeing organizations that adopt this new model cut their costs by up to 80%. I'm going to say that again, 80%. This isn't some small tweak or optimization. This is a fundamental, game-changing shift in the entire cost structure of hosting. So what is hybrid orchestration exactly? Well, put simply, it's the best of both worlds. You get all the powerful automation you'd expect from a platform as a service, but it runs inside your own cloud account, whether that's AWS, Azure, DigitalOcean, you name it. A great example of this model in action is a platform called DevPanel. So, this model really gives you 4 huge advantages. First, you get full digital sovereignty because all the data and the infrastructure live in your account. Second, you get that zero markup model we just talked about. Third, it can seriously speed up your development with tools like a browser-based cloud IDE. And finally, and this is a big one, it gives you auto-scaling to handle those massive traffic spikes so you never have to worry about the dreaded Reddit hug of death. Okay, so we've looked at the old models and we've looked at the new one. Now, let's get to the most important part. How do you actually make a decision? How do you pick the right path for your organization as we head into 2026? To do that, we have to strip away all the marketing fluff and just put these 3 different models head-to-head on the features that actually matter. So let's do it direct comparison. This table really lays it all out, but let's just focus on 2 of the most critical rows here, account ownership and infrastructure pricing. For Pantheon and Acquia, you see the account is vendor-owned. That's why you pay a bundled tiered price. Now look over at DevPanel, which represents hybrid orchestration. The account is client-owned, and the price is just the raw cost, with no markup. That right there, that is the fundamental difference. It's what shifts the power, the control, and the financial savings back to you. So here's a super simple way to find your fit. 1, choose Pantheon if your #1 priority is a standardized, ready-to-go WebOps workflow for your agile team. 2, choose Acquia if you're a massive regulated enterprise where that centralized governance and compliance is completely not negotiable. But 3, if your main goal is to eliminate vendor lock-in, keep full control, and dramatically cut your hosting bill, then a hybrid orchestration platform like DevPanel is the strategic move. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this one simple question. Who owns the infrastructure? The answer to that single question determines everything: your costs, your control, and all of your future flexibility. And that really leaves us with one last thought. As you're planning out your strategy, don't just ask what platform you're going to use. Ask yourself this: in 2026, are you going to own your infrastructure? Or, through that negotiation trap, is it going to end up owning you? The choice is yours to make. Thanks so much for joining us. I really hope this breakdown helps you navigate the super complex world of Drupal hosting. We'll see you next time to break down another topic.